This is TWiT.
There was an internal email that was leaked that came from Jem Wilke, which is Amazon's CEO of Worldwide Retail, and it noted that his team was quote-unquote disappointed about the site issues, and it said that the company was already working on preventing it from happening again. But this is, I think, Cheever, I want to throw this question over to you again. Like, this is obviously, there was talks about like, hey, there was an operation call where they had an emergency conference call with like 300 people, and they were trying to figure things out and go through the process. You've been in this before. You had to support networking issues and issues with, at interop and even with your stuff. What happens in this type of thing? Like, what is the process that an organization normally takes when something goes wrong? What do they have to do?
I think the biggest problem is you have this giant flurry of finger pointing. Once you can get past all the personalities and the finger pointing and the I told you so's, then after that flurry is done, then you actually settle down and try and figure out what exactly happened. When you have a service call or an op engineering call with 300 people on it, that tells me that Amazon didn't completely understand what was causing the problem. And when you have a call that big, there is no way it can be productive. So that was their finger pointing session. They obviously figured it out because, after an hour or so of trying to buy that Echo Spot, I was able to finally buy it. And things, were going fairly well. It was slow, but at least it was functional. So that tells me that someone finally raised their hand and got their voice heard and said, hey, can we try looking at this, please? And so, yeah, I think the biggest problem with any large organization is getting past the finger pointing and into the how are we going to fix this? Because someone, obviously had a lack of imagination on how big Prime Day was going to become this year.
Right. Well, I can tell you, for me, from past experiences, that I've been on calls with tons of people, trying to diagnose a problem, and there's tons of pressure there. I mean, I can be honest, there was times where I was frantically looking at dashboards and information metrics, what was going on with the system and where the bottleneck was happening, and what my performance metrics, were they good or were they bad, when did they drop off, and that kind of thing. And so I can say that it's one of those things where you just kind of lose all sense of what's going on in the world, and you're just focusing on this one thing. But again, I think Curtis brought this up, and I'll throw this back to you, Curtis, for the last word here. Is what you talked a little bit about some of the tools that organizations are using, but what about data visibility and being able to make decisions at a moment's notice? Should they have been alerted of this problem ahead of time?
Well, they really should have. And, we had a guest recently for our 300th episode. Tim Titus was our guest. His company has tools that are designed to look into network and application delivery issues and tell you where the issues are. There are a fair number of these out there that look at different pieces of the problem. The issue, especially with cloud deployments, and I have to believe that for Amazon, where they have this amazing combination both of servers that are owned by Amazon, the retailer, and servers that are operated by AWS, it can be very complex figuring out where in that chain of application delivery you have an issue. And even if you're looking at the one pane of glass to rule them all, which is sort of the holy grail of problem solving, it's awfully complex. Now, what we see here is something that we see fairly often. I think that companies are bombed at least as often by success as they are for failure. I have heard lots and lots of executives saying, okay, if we spend this money on a promotional effort, what do we do if we spend the money and it doesn't pay off? Very rarely do you hear people say, we're going to put out this huge promotional effort. What do we do if it succeeds beyond our wildest imaginings? And that's when it can be really hard, because that's what, as I said, you end up DDoSing yourself. And, we find out just what the effect of that is on operations.
Right. I think Emily Strange pointing out, she's saying, hey, is this really that big of a deal? And I think, for consumers, maybe it wasn't that big of a deal because all they had to do is click, save or submit to my cart about another 100 times and they finally got it in there and they got their things to buy. But I think from the other perspective, it is a little bit of a big deal for them as an enterprise cloud software company, cloud services company. And so they're going to have to make their adjustments. They're going to have to do a little bit of marketing to kind of get out of this hole. But I think they'll obviously get out sooner or later and things will become better. So we'll see what happens in the coming days, in the coming months, and in the coming years of Prime Day.